Let's go back to Sakina now in Vereeniging, where she's joined by the MEC in that area. So let's go to her. SK, good morning again.
Well, good morning, Leanne. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Rus-Ter-Vaal. And as promised in our earlier crossing, we have now moved to the new building. This is supposed to be Rus-Ter-Vaal High School behind us. And if you look at the plans and you look at what has been started, it really is an impressive building, an impressive construction, if of course it had come to fruition. But unfortunately, it is still incomplete at this point. And of course, you know, we took a walk around, had a look at everything that's been happening here. And of course, we called in a quantity surveyor independently just to give us a sense of what exactly is going on. But going back to exactly why we are here this morning, the community around Mfuleni have been outraged about incomplete infrastructure projects such as exactly this one, the Rus-Ter-Vaal High School. So this is not the only incomplete project in the area. A stone's throw from here, there's a stadium project that is also incomplete. There's a library to my right that's also still incomplete. Several other buildings, including the Kopanong Hospital, which obviously has been described as a stillborn project, and unfortunately a very expensive stillborn project at over 200,000 Rand in costs. I'm joined now by the MEC in Gauteng for Infrastructure Development, Tasneem Motara, to talk about these developments. MEC, thanks so much for coming through this morning.
Morning. It's good to be here, even though it's cold.
It certainly is very cold, and we appreciate you taking the time to come out, because I think it's important that the community actually gets responses to their concerns. But I want to get your first impression of what you're seeing here.
So I think the biggest for me is just huge disappointment, because by now the school should have been open and operational. Sadly, because we had a contractor that just wasn't up to scratch, we were forced as a department to terminate the contractor. So the construction has stopped, the contractor has been terminated, and that has got its own legal process, and we're in the process of appointing a contractor to finish the school.
So just to be clear, the same contractor who left this particular facility, the Rus-Ter-Vaal High School, incomplete, is the same contractor who also left the Kopanong Hospital incomplete.
Yes, unfortunately, it is the same contractor. So we had similar issues on the two sites. They were running concurrently. It started with what we could notice as we could call cash flow problems. We tried to engage the contractor. The contractor, extremely stubborn, extremely arrogant. We tried to assist the contractor with information from the department to help them with financial access from banking institutions. They failed. We then began to get a sense that the contractor was now no longer cooperating, also not being honest with the fact that they were having financial cash flow problems. We then began to give, using the contract, warnings to the contractor, which they have to remedy by responding to. Instead of responding, we were met with a legal process, which we, for instance, at the Kopanong Hospital, instead of responding, they then took us to an arbitration. The arbitration we won as the department, so we were in the right as the department, and then we could terminate them. We just decided, I think, not to go through the arbitration process, or they decided not to go through the arbitration process. And once we issued the termination notice, they just didn't respond. We failed to get a hold of them. They would not come to sites, and we then proceeded to terminate. We now are proceeding over and above getting the completion contractor, which will be a different contractor. We are proceeding to blacklist the company as well as the company owners in their own personal capacity, because we were made aware that the company owner was opening another company using a different name. So you want to really send a strong message to the private sector who take advantage of government, who treat government as though they're doing us a favor, as opposed to doing the work that they've been contracted to do and being paid to do. I think so. We're going through a process of blacklisting with National Treasury, a legal process to recover monies outstanding that we believe the department is liable for, so that we can recover whatever. Of course, he has been paid for the work that he has done, and that's not in dispute. But the work that, the money that is owed to the department, we definitely will chase it.
So how much has been paid to this company and to the individual projects and collectively? Because the company in question is called Condocor. And it's interesting that you say you've not been able to get hold of them, because we've tried. The phone was answered once. We've called several times. We've sent emails to get them to come and respond and give us their side of the story, to no avail. But how much has been paid to Condocor for both of these projects?
So at the hospital project, they did work up to the value of 80 million rand, which we've paid them for. Here at the school, I just need to check, I'm not 100% sure, but we left with about 40 to 50% of the work left. So I think probably about 60 million over the period from the start to where we are now.
So what were the initial costs for these particular projects? Let's speak to the school first. What was it initially costed at?
So the initial budget of the school is about, I think it's about 140 million, if I'm not mistaken. So now what we are doing is, of course, the quantity surveyor, like you were saying, the quantity surveyor is just going to quantify the remaining works on site and then give us a scope, which is the bill of quantities, which will allow us to get a new contractor. At the hospital project, it was budgeted for I think it was about 280 million. So there's still a lot of money left on both projects. There's money left to complete the project. Of course, we budget according to what the building is going to give us. Here at the school, we're just going to complete the works. There's no scope change. There's nothing. At the hospital, we're just waiting for the Department of Health. Of course, you'd remember, Sakina, that hospital initially was meant just for COVID. So it would have been ICU beds in the main. But Department of Health saw an opportunity to reconfigure the space, put in additional capacity to the already existing Kopanong hospital. So we're just waiting for them to give us the design, what it is that they want us to do there, and then reconfigure that space and using alternative building technology. So it won't be the bricks and mortar that you see here. We're using alternative building technology to be able to give us the additional capacity, so not the COVID hospital that we had planned for. I think it's a plus and a minus. At least it gives us, as a department and Gauteng provincial government, an opportunity to use alternative building technology to add to the capacity at Kopanong Hospital and in the Vaal as a whole, because it's under pressure. The area is under pressure in terms of health services.
So the community is generally outraged about these incomplete projects. So contractors come on site, they start these projects and they leave them unfinished. And they are concerned about not just the wasteful expenditure inherent therein, but also the fact that this school project, as an example, you have children who are sitting in a dilapidated building that is actually dangerous and has been declared as such by the Department of Labor. They were supposed to move to this facility in February of 2020. It's already August of 2022. So at what point did you, as the department, realize that there was going to be a problem with that contractor and that they were not going to deliver on time?
So like I said, we had problems. So in 2020, late 2020, 2021, we started experiencing problems. So what would happen is they would do work, where they would get paid, and then they would put money into the project, and then within maybe 2 weeks, the work would sort of slow down. And then they would put in an invoice. So we pay every month. You claim.
If I may just interject there. So the problem is that before that, the school was already supposed to be occupied.
Yes.
In February of 2020, that's what the school was told. The learners, the teachers, the SGB were told that February of 2020, they will be moving from the old school to this building. And this is before COVID, before lockdown.
Okay.
So what happened? What were the delays caused by?
So remember, in 2019, they lost 8 months of work. So we couldn't work for 8 months in 2019. So when we came back to site at the end, towards the end of 2019, it was September 2019. That's when, so the 2019 period was the COVID period. So they came back to site in September 2019. And then the problems that we started to see, so it was not possible for us to come to or complete the school by February. It would have been later on in 2021, because we would have had to catch up the 8 months. So that's when we started to see those problems and experience those. So they would get paid, put in money into the project. Maybe for 2 weeks there would be productivity, and then the work sort of slows down, and then they get paid. So we begin to notice the pattern, and then that's when we say that you actually have cash flow problems. You must please respond, etc., etc.
Why did you continue to pay them?
They have to get paid for the work that they do. So what happens is that using the contract, you then issue a warning, and then with the warning, it's like almost like a labor contract. You get a warning or an opportunity to respond. So you issue a warning, and then they would respond with remedial action, and then we would see action. And then, but of course, that's not sustainable. You know, you can't issue, and then so if they respond to the warning sort of lapses, and then you issue another warning. They respond to the warning favorably. The warning you can't sort of carry the warning over. Every time you deal with a warning, it's a new warning. They respond favorably, and then we can't until we got to the stage, like I say, where we couldn't get hold of the contractor. Now we had issues where they owed subcontractors. We had meetings, when we call meetings in the department offices, they would not respond. And then concurrently, like I say, the two projects running concurrently, we then issued a termination, and they took us to arbitration. So we knew by then what would have happened at the school project.
So by the time that the Kopanong build started, were you already having problems with that contractor at this high school facility?
No, so the Kopanong Hospital was being built during COVID. So that's the only project that was allowed to take place under the lockdown. So the rest of these and our other construction projects could not. So there, no, you couldn't say that we were already having issues, because that was happening during COVID. The big problems that we found here was when we returned to site late 2019 and then into 2020. So 2019, when they came back, I would imagine that they used some of the money that they were paid at Kopanong here, but then I can't really say what would have happened, because we paid them on time both here in this project, and we paid them on time at the hospital project as well.
So when it comes to this particular facility, I've seen two videos where you are on camera speaking about progress at this particular facility. And in the latest one, you actually said that this project would be completed, was on track to be completed 2021. So what happened?
Like I say, so that's going back to your question about were we experiencing problems with this contractor when we started Kopanong, and the answer is no, we were not. So we were happy with the progress. We were able to track it. We were fine. There were delays here and there. A lot of it had to do with delays in delivery of material or rainy weather, so they couldn't build and lost a lot of days. So we were convinced that we were going to finish. We were convinced that we would have been able to open. 8 months of no work during COVID. We come back to site. We expect that the contractor is going to find ways of making up the lost time first, and then give us the school, not exactly at the time we expected, of course, because we know that she's got to make up 8 months of lost time, but it wasn't the case. And I don't want to use COVID as an excuse, because the contractor never gave us COVID as a reason. In fact, we still don't know the reason for why the bad performance when we returned to site. Like I say, we would have expected that he was one of this company was one of the fortunate construction companies that got work opportunities during COVID. Many construction companies were not allowed to work during COVID. So we would have expected that he was getting an income during COVID, and that money should have been able to suffice. It's just was just inexplicable why, and the arrogance, non-responding to meetings, non-responding to emails. Instead, we get taken to arbitration, and that's another delay tactic. The department won the arbitration, and then just the fact that we came back after COVID, and the progress and the performance was vastly different to what we had experienced before.
The problem, though, is the department has to also accept some responsibility for what has taken place here, because equally, you also did not go back to the community to communicate with them what was happening with this project. Hence, the community then started protesting because they were left in the dark. The last time they were communicated with, they were told that they will be moving to the school in 2020. That was the last communication they had. And while it may not be directly your responsibility, but as government, surely there needed to be better communication with the community so that they know what's going on.
Well, that's not entirely true, Sakina, because the community serves in the project steering committee in the form of the councillor who actually and then SMMEs and the community liaison officer. In fact, one of the entities that was subcontracting here is owned by the now MMC in the municipality. Immediately when he was appointed an MEC, we had a meeting with them to explain what was going on. We've written communication to them. We've had several meetings here on site. So it's not, maybe they're not satisfied with the responses, I can take that, but to say that we've not met them at all, we've not communicated would really, really, really be untrue.
But you see, it's about speaking to those people who are involved at a particular level with government. The community at large, the school, for example, hasn't received a single communication piece regarding progress of this particular facility, according to them. They don't know. At this point, they are as unaware as I am right now about what is happening here.
Okay, that's also, it can't be true because the SGB serves with us so unless we have to have a meeting with all the staff and the principal, but the SGB has delegated somebody to represent the school and the school community here. So, like I say, unless, and they've not come to us to say that we want to have a meeting with the school, and we want to have a meeting with parents, as an example, for you to, which I would have gladly done. So I think maybe the response they're not happy with, and we're not happy to give that response. But to say that we've not engaged them, they don't know. I don't think that's entirely true.
Members of the SGB are here, so I will ask them in our next crossing because we're coming up to news time. I'll ask them because they have indicated that they are not aware of what is going on here. But quite apart from that, how much is it going to cost now? How much is it going to cost to actually bring this facility up to speed so that the children can move from that dangerous, dilapidated building to a fit-for-purpose school?
So now, because it's going to go out to the public, what is it going to cost? I don't want to divulge how much it's going to be because we're going to advertise for a completion contractor. So if I divulge, those who have an interest to do the project would know more or less what to charge the department. But it is any credible quantity surveyor would be able to adequately quantify and give us a cost for it. We do know more or less how much it's going to cost, but of course it's a procurement process which we must leave, which we must not taint the process. Yeah.
So it's going out on tender again.
Yes. Yeah. So the completion contract is of a value that we can't appoint sort of internally. It must go out to the public for anybody who qualifies to respond to.
And I think, this is the other issue that the public has with these contractors who seemingly are getting away with murder, because in terms of follow-up, contractors have been paid, leave these facilities unfinished and we just move on to the next contractor to come and complete the mess and move on. Surely that's unacceptable because people need to be held accountable.
No, definitely, and that's why we're going the route of blacklisting. The blacklisting route will ensure that the company as well as the owner, even if he opens up a company in another name, will not be able to do business with the state because we don't believe that ourselves as a department and the community, what we've experienced with this contractor, any other community or any other government department must experience. So he'll be forced to do work in the private sector, not with the state, and that's ensuring that your failure isn't repeated. I think for us that's really critical, that you shouldn't I think we maybe would have had a different attitude if we had a better attitude from the contractor, but just to, for instance, to respond, to be upfront with the department that yes, I am having cash flow problems. I'm financially not able to continue, because it does happen. Something happens, companies go under all the time. But instead, that's not what we received, and we feel that we've got to go that route, that extreme, so that this company, this individual, is not allowed to do business with the state again.
So, Rus-Ter-Vaal High, Kopanang Hospital, how many other contracts does Condacor have with the department?
It's just those two.
Just these two. And the blacklisting, will it affect other projects that the company is involved with in other parts of the country as well?
It will affect them from getting future appointments. But I think other departments, if they are having in the country, if they are having the same experience with the same company, I think they are then at liberty to sort of cut their losses before they get into more trouble with the with the company.
So just from a cursory bit of research work, it is clear that Condacor is doing quite a bit of work across the country. So what are you doing in terms of trying to recover some of the monies that you have paid to this company?
So that's part of the process. So we're suing them both civilly, in a civil process, for the monies that they owe the subcontractors, because they also owe subcontractors, because we didn't have contracts with the subcontractors, but we are suing them on behalf of the subcontractors to recover that money and make sure that the money is paid to subcontractors, and then we are suing them as a department for money that they owe the department directly. I would imagine that they are doing work with across the country, because they are a CIDB grade 9 company. So a CIDB grade 9 company has a particular value in terms of just its capacity, staff complement, etc., etc. And that's all governed by the CIDB. So it's not possible to get to a grade 9 CIDB just doing business in one province or with one department. It's just not possible.
And just finally, going back to Kopanang, you said about 80 million has been paid. That there seems to be discrepancy in that regard, because reading some reports, reading what the Department of Health themselves have said in terms of the expenditure on that project, it seems to be, for the most part, there's talk about around 200 million on that particular project. So I'm just looking for a little more clarity on exactly how much was spent on Kopanang.
Okay, so 230 was the budget. We spent 80 million. So what we've paid is 80 million. So we didn't pay 200. That's what was budgeted for. It's like this one was budgeted about 140, and then we've paid 50% of that. So we pay as you do the work in tranches. You claim as a contractor, you would claim for the work that you've done in a month, and then we pay you, and then you continue. So we've not paid 200. That was what was budgeted, but we've only paid 80 million.
So Jasni Mutara is, of course, the MEC for the Department of Infrastructure Development in Gauteng, speaking to us about this incomplete facility that is Rus-Ter-Vaal High School and, of course, Kopanang Hospital. And what she tells us, of course, is that what they will do now as a department is put out a new tender for a completion project on this facility and, of course, Kopanang, because this particular contractor, has just gone underground, not responding to the department, not responding to us. But of course, I think the public needs to have that money recovered because it cannot be right that we have a litany of these buildings across the country, construction sites where people start projects and they don't finish, and yet they've been paid for the work by the department. So we're going to take a break here from Rus-Ter-Vaal. We'll come back. We've got the SGB, we've got some of the subcontractors who are still running after their monies as well, and of course a community that is less pleased about the facilities that their children have to endure at the moment, whereas money has been spent for better facilities for them. It's back to studio for now.